Hello, I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Borough of Parkside Council. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'll call the roll, please.
Mayor Roman?
Here.
Mrs. Guy?
Here.
Mr. Costigan?
Here.
Mr. Bull?
Here.
Mr. Powers? Mr. Sidlow?
Here.
Ms. Purcival?
Here.
Mr. Sweigart?
Here.
Mr. Wills?
Here.
Ms. Catania?
Nope, not expected.
Ms. Stillwell?
Not expected.
And junior counsel is off for the summer.
Brianna still shows up. She can't get enough. Okay, so we're going to start with a call to citizens. The agenda is kind of vague in this case, but if anybody would like to get up and discuss something agenda related, now is the time.
Anna, who is going to pay the legal fees for the audit if the fire company decides to fight it?
We'll discuss that later on in the meeting, but are they going to fight it?
I have no clue. I'm just asking as a resident, not as a member of the fire company.
I think that may be a little speculative at this point, but I suspect if we reach that point, certainly
We just had an audit.
a decision would be made and publicly made by Borough Council.
Okay. If the firehouse shuts down, who are you going to bring in?
Again,
What
that's
happens if your
speculative.
house is on fire?
I appreciate your concern. Again, that's speculative.
It's not. So no answers again. There's my answer.
it's public
My
comment.
assignment is my answer. Thank you.
We start one before we do the funding for this thing, the audit. And the audit is for a reason that we have something against them, we don't think they're using the money properly. Is that why we're having the audit?
Would you like to address that?
Yeah. In light of the allegations, at this point they are allegations against the former president of the Parkside Fire Company, it is my considered opinion and recommendation that the borough undertake an audit of the fire company finances. I believe that is prudent. I believe that is an exercise of due diligence on behalf of Borough Council, again, in light of the allegations at this point.
So there's something missing with somebody's messing with the money then? That's what your allegations are saying?
Yes.
No, that there are no allegations of any nature with regard to the fire company.
No, to me, that's
And again, the vote may be, I'm not sure how this vote's going to go, Mr. Slowick, but the vote may be to undertake an audit of the fire company, again, in light of the substantial investment in taxpayer funds that are being provided to the fire company.
correct.
And we're all aware of the budgeted line items
Yes, sir.
as to the amount of taxpayer investment that we go into the volunteer firefighting company here in Parkside Borough.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. Madam President, just a couple of questions. My name is Ken Goldstein from over on Parkside Terrace. I stopped in this morning at the borough office to pick up the agenda, and you kind of intonated yourself what I saw this morning. There wasn't a lot of specificity. You mentioned some personnel issues. And so if myself or anybody else in the room care to offer some opinionation on that, we really don't know what those issues are, and so we can't do it. And at that point, you'll take action on whatever has to be taken care of, and we really didn't have the opportunity to address it. Is it inappropriate for me, or am I out of line to ask what personnel issues you would be dealing with, so that if I have some concerns, I can share them with you?
I think that would be a fair question, Mr. Goldstein.
Okay. We're going to discuss related to Mr. Capobianco and Mr. Powers.
Okay. In terms, are we talking retention issues?
I can't really, well, I am going to ask for a vote to terminate his employment, but we can't discuss much more than that.
All right, so can I ask who, when you say his, who are we speaking of?
Both? Well, suspension for Mr. Powers.
So their retention, both of them, you're going to take a vote on? Okay. All right. I'm not going to butt in where I don't belong. I would say with regard to Mr. Powers, I would hope that whatever the discussions are, that everyone keeps in mind his years of dedicated service to this borough in the positions in which he has served. I don't know what the present issues are, and I'm not even going to get into them, but I hope that that will be part of the consideration of what he gave of self and what his family gave to this borough. And secondly, the canon of presumption of innocence unless shown to the otherwise. So I hope that all of you will consider that. With regard to Mr. Capobianco, again, I don't know what the specific issues are, but I have owned in this property for the past 30 years, and you know that I am supportive of him. And I would have to say he's probably been the best code enforcement officer that we have had in the years that I have been here, in terms of diligently enforcing the codes of this borough and working as hard as he did. I've said before, he's here working when everyone else is home sleeping or having their coffee. And I would hate to think that this just comes down to the politics of it all. But I very strongly urge you to really consider and think about what he has done for the time that you have been here and precedent to that. The last item I just wanted to ask you, and maybe I have to defer that, your solicitor, Mr. Wills, had sent a letter to me with regard to confidential or financial information about myself that perhaps left the borough office. And I just wanted to address that letter publicly, if I could. I totally understand everything that you said, and I appreciate the borough's position.
Yeah,
I just want to share with you where I am with it, but I can defer that till we're done the meeting.
Yeah, what I'll suggest you do, Mr. Goldstein, is the initial public comment is for agenda-related
Understood. That's what I'm
items.
saying. I can wait till the end.
At the conclusion of the meeting, we will have a second
That's fine.
public discussion.
That's fine.
In which case, the public discussion need not be limited to
Understood.
agenda-related
I totally understand.
items.
Thank you.
Right.
Hi, I'm Kyle Palmer. I just want to clarify that, yes, the firehouse did have an audit recently. It was a relief association audit. Those funds were not inclusive of the taxpayer money that goes to them every year. That is completely separate. So our taxpayer funds have not been audited. I did submit a right to know for any firehouse financial reports that were submitted to this council. so I could see them. I also reviewed all the minutes for the last 2.5 years to see if anything was said in the meetings. And I attributed all of those to each payment that was made to them for 2021 and 2022. And some of the reports are awfully vague, so, you know, we spent $24,000, the entirety of the check, on general operating expenses, which I think is unfair to the taxpayers. It's not very transparent, and it's not very explanatory. It doesn't say anything. We don't know what your general operating expenses are. Including all the ones that have no report, it totals about $80,000 that are unaccounted for the firehouse financial reports. And so, you know, you passed this resolution that said, you know, they are supposed to do all of these things, and they've tried, right? But it's not good enough. And they agreed to hand over a 990 every year because they tell you that they're a nonprofit. They're not a nonprofit. They lost that nonprofit status in 2018. I believe they're fully aware of that because Mr. Dietman told me, as the treasurer of the firehouse, he worked with an accountant to pay back taxes to the federal and state government, which you don't do as a nonprofit. You don't owe taxes. You're tax exempt. So maybe not everyone at the firehouse knows that, but the leadership knew, right? That's all I'll say about that for right now. But to counter Mr. Goldstein's point, it's easy to say that Nick is a great employee when you're his friend, but I've heard from several residents who say the opposite, right? There was one resident who was approached by his own neighbor because Mr. Capobianco was prodding him to make a complaint against him because he didn't like him. So other people don't want to come forward because of that kind of retaliation. I have a neighbor who sold her house in Parkside, bought another one in Parkside. She was getting dinged for things in the house she was selling, but the same issues existed in the house she was buying. And when she pointed that out, he said to her, "Do you want to sell your house or not?" And kept finding more things to make her fix in retaliation. It's easy to say he's a good employee. It's easy to say even that he's working so hard, but you know, he doesn't have set hours. I have neighbors of his who told me that his car is in the driveway. I mean, the borough car is in the driveway all day long, every day. So when is he working exactly? You know, he gets paid a salary, right? It started at, when 2016, your minutes say $3,000. You voted to up it to $6,000. The next year in the budget, it was $17,000. Now it's like $22,000, plus he gets payments for inspections on top of that. So you got a part-time employee making over $40,000 a year. That's more than some of us make full-time. It's not fair, it's not right. And that's all I'll say about that, so.
Can I address one fact? Mr. Solicitor.
Yes.
Ms. Palmer stated about the taxes. Those taxes were paid for employees of the then ambulance service. There was a treasurer at that time, and I'm not going to mention her name, that did not correctly pay those taxes. But when you're talking about taxes, that was for the employees, the paramedics of the service for the ambulance. So I'd like to clarify that.
IRS, and they confirmed that.
I'm not going to debate it.
They can go up twice. You responded, allow her to respond. Go ahead, Kyle.
I did call the IRS, and they confirmed that you lost.
Kyle, why don't you run at the firehouse one shift? One shift.
All right.
No, don't tell me to shut up.
This form that you showed on the internet, which somebody sent me, if you look at the name, Christine, and I won't say her last name, is the one that was filing the taxes and did not do so properly for the employees that the ambulance service had up until September 13th of 2020.
Are you saying then that they are a nonprofit and they hold nonprofit
I'm
status?
only correcting your issue with taxes.
All right, well, that's irrelevant.
Well, you brought it up, I'm just making sure
Okay,
it's correct.
let's move on. Thank you.
Hi, Judy Saunders, 62 East Cheltenham Road. I support the fire company. I've shown that I've supported the fire company. We've actually gone to the fire company several times to try to do fundraisers for them and told them, no, they didn't want that. That's fine. But for years, and I've attended a lot of meetings, we've had a representative of the fire company come up each time and tell us, well, no, this treasurer was really bad and they left us in a lurch and we don't know where the money went. We're not going to prosecute them and we're not going to bring them up on charges, but now we have to have a whole new board, so it's going to be handled. And then the next guy leaves and they're like, oh, it was his fault that it's a mess. We're trusting our taxpayer money to you. If you are entrusting it to people that in a long line are not being financially and fiscally responsible to the point that it is now a distressed entity, then it is our responsibility as taxpayers, and quite frankly, your responsibility as council, to oversee the money that is coming out of my pocket to fund this private entity. If there's no problem, then transparency should not be a problem. I have asked questions and had people scream at me that they're a hero and I should try one shift on there, and did I ever put on a pair of fire boots? And I understand a lot of people have volunteered for this community for a lot of years. Do they get to steal from it? Is that the level that we're at? If you volunteer and your family has donated
Who they
time
stole
and money, are they allowed to not answer questions, not be transparent, not do the things that are responsible fiscally for the money that is coming out of taxpayers' pockets? If the $130,000 is being spent properly and the fire department is functioning properly, then it's a boon for all of us. I 100% agree. But if it is not being spent properly, if it is one person after another that we blame for it not being spent, it was Deepman, it was Andrew, it was this guy, and now we're just going to have this revolving door of board members and trustees and nobody's going to answer a question, I want an audit. Because now it seems like no one is being responsible with my money. I'm sorry. That's a sad effect. If you had answered the questions, if you'd done what you said you were going to do when this money was first allocated to you, we would not be in this position now. We didn't. You weren't giving us those reports the way you were supposed to. You acted in bad faith, and now you are at a point where you need to be held accountable. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it's there, but it's not her fault or her fault. It is the fault that you did not come here when you were given this money and be accountable for it. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. Council held an executive session last week and agreed to call a special meeting to discuss limited topics today. Councilman Powers was arrested and charged with multiple thefts from a Brookhaven store last month. Our solicitor has advised us that the correct course of action is to suspend Mr. Powers from his jobs with the borough pending the outcome of the charges. I will make the motion to suspend Mr. Powers from his positions as fire marshal, fire inspector, emergency management coordinator, and a variety of others, leaf collection, road work, road maintenance, pending the outcome of the charges. I've made the motion.
Second.
There isn't much discussion we can do, so if there aren't any questions, let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Bullock?
Aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
Mr. Sidlow?
Aye.
Ms. Purcival?
Aye.
Mr. Sweigart?
Yes.
Mr. Costigan?
Yes.
Ms. Guy?
Yes,
6 yes.
thank you. So moved.
And again, for the record, this is a temporary suspension. Again, pending the outcome and resolution of the case in the Delaware County court system. Mr. Powers has not been terminated.
Now, we do need to make sure that we have a fire marshal in the case that there is a fire. I spoke with Michael Daly. He has a lot of experience. I have his resume here, and we'll share it with all of council. I believe, Ms. Purcival, you're familiar with him. And he is willing to be the interim fire marshal for $300 a month, which is a greatly reduced rate that we were currently paying. I would like to make that motion to appoint Mr. Daly as the interim fire marshal until we find out the outcome of the charges.
Second.
Do we need a roll call?
I have a question on the motion.
Okay.
Could you tell me when all of council will have the opportunity to speak with Mr. Daly, whether I know him or not?
I can give you his information right here. I'll give you
When
a
is
copy
all
of
of
this.
council going to have the opportunity to speak with Mr. Daly concerning his position as temporary fire marshal?
We can plan an executive session to meet with him.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And again, the temporary appointment of Mr. Daly as fire marshal, he serves at the pleasure of Borough Council. So if we have a meeting with Mr. Daly, if we are dissatisfied perhaps with that particular meeting, we are under no obligation to continue with Mr. Daly in his services. However, it is imperative, though, that we then have an alternate fire marshal ready to go. The borough must have a fire marshal.
May I interject that the fire marshal through the state police can come in at any time? And the fire company must agree to have that fire marshal on their scene. And there is a new state fire marshal, in fact.
Interesting. Thank you for
So
that.
you're saying the fire company has to approve our fire marshal?
The fire company controls the scene according to the NIMS. Any NIMS-controlled scene, the fire company allows the fire marshal to come on their scene. They may request the state fire marshal to come into and onto their scene.
Is that right?
During an active, again, fire suppression issue, yes, the chief of the fire company, he is the one that has authority on the scene, and generally the fire marshal would come in at that time or subsequent thereto. The fire marshal conducts an investigation as to the origins of that particular fire and provides recommendations to council on how those particular perhaps fires can be alleviated in the future. So he conducts an investigative role. But again, when we have an active fire, it is the fire chief on the scene that calls the shots. He is in control. He has the authority.
Thank you. Okay, so do we need a roll call vote? Go ahead, roll call vote.
Mr. Bull.
Yeah.
Mr. Sidlow.
Aye.
Ms. Purcival.
No, not until he's been interviewed by all of council.
Mr. Sweigart.
Yes.
Mr. Costigan.
Yes.
Mrs. Guy.
Yes.
5-1, one absent.
I would suggest between now and the August monthly meeting that Borough Council see if we can have, again, an executive session meeting with Mr. Daly, and if there is a comfort level among Borough Council members, then again, Mr. Daly, of course, could continue, again, in his temporary capacity as fire marshal for the Borough of Parkside.
Thank you. Moving on. As members of council, the residents must be able to trust that we will serve them with honesty and integrity. While I agree that we are innocent until proven guilty in the court of law, a judge looked at the evidence and felt it merited issuing 2 arrest warrants for Councilman Powers. I realize that we cannot force Mr. Powers from his seat, but I am asking council to request that Mr. Powers resign immediately from council, as these charges are serious and call his honesty and integrity into question.
Second.
I didn't make the motion.
You make a motion. I move we call for the resignation of Councilman Powers.
Second.
Again, limited on what we can say, but are there any questions? Okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Bull?
No.
Mr. Sidlow?
Aye.
Mrs. Purcival?
No.
Mr. Sweigart?
Yes.
Mr. Costigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Guy?
Yes. All right, thank you.
42, 1 absent.
Thank you very much. Okay, and
So, Mr. Powers has council committee assignments. So I can call for a motion to take away his committee assignments.
Okay, that is at the discretion of the council president. We need not vote on that. The
Okay.
council president assigns committees at her discretion, so there is no vote among borough council members. But if the council president, in her judgment, wishes to remove the councilman from certain committees, she is free to do so. She could do it now, or she could do it at the August monthly meeting, or a meeting subsequent thereto.
well, at this time, I didn't want to be accused of being a dictator, so I was putting it to a vote, but I appreciate you clarifying. Then I will at this time remove Mr. Powers from his committee assignments until more is known, but, or until he, pending his resignation, whether he chooses to do so or not. So we'll move on now, and the next item I have here is the motion to terminate Mr. Capobianco from his jobs. Again, this is a personnel matter we can't discuss in order to protect the confidentiality of Mr. Capobianco, but I will make the motion to terminate Mr. Capobianco.
Second.
Are there any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
If this gentleman has complied with all necessary information, all emails, and with other outside agencies, why is he being terminated? If there is only hearsay of what he has done.
I disagree with you, and we can't discuss this.
So you cannot say why you wish to terminate somebody?
Mr. Wills, we discussed this.
Again, as a public employee, Mr. Capobianco has certain confidentiality rights. And he does serve as an employee at will. And by that I mean that he can be discharged for any reason at any time or for no reason at all under Pennsylvania prevailing law and the at-will employee doctrine. Whether council wishes to publicly discuss the underlying reasons for the discharge vote, that is clearly at the discretion of council. But again, technically, as an at-will employee, Mr. Capobianco or any borough employee, except again the police department employees that I spoke about, again, can be discharged for no reason at all.
All right. Let's have a vote.
Mr. Bull?
No.
Mr. Sidlow?
Yes.
Ms. Purcival?
No.
Mr. Sweigart?
Yes.
Mr. Costigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Guy?
Yes,
Well, third time's a charm.
so moved. I'd now like to make the motion to advertise his jobs, so that we can see if we can find somebody to put in those positions.
I'll make that motion, or I'll second it, whatever.
Thank you.
Wherever we are.
Are there any questions? All those in favor? Do we need a roll call for this? Let me hear it. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, roll call vote.
Mr. Bullock.
Yes.
Mr. Sidlow.
Aye.
Mrs. Purcival.
Yes, on the condition all of council interviews.
Mr. Sweigart.
Yes.
Mr. Costigan.
Yes.
Mrs. Guy.
Yes, and what does her making a condition do to the vote? I mean...
I'm sorry, but
does-
several other people
does-
have done that, so I'm just following suit.
Does that just...
Voted yes with the caveat, but it's still a yes vote.
I'd just like it on the record that numerous times we have not all been involved in interviews.
Certainly not. Okay, so moved. And now, Mr. Wills, I would like you to explain, as you explained to us, about the need for the firehouse audit. I believe you've already touched on a great deal of it.
Again, I think, in light of the allegations that I believe the public is well aware of, I think it would be prudent to conduct an audit of the fire company, again, in light of the substantial investment in taxpayer dollars we know over the past 2 or 3 years. We have received a proposal from Brinker Simpson. Brinker Simpson is well known to Borough Council. They are presently our Borough Treasurer. They do a fine job. I have the highest regard for Ms. Stillwell, as well as her staff, and have worked with her very, very nicely over the past 7 or 8 months. She has a proposal for an audit, which I've looked at the numbers, I find them to be reasonable, and therefore, if it is the pleasure of Borough Council, a motion would be in order to accept that proposal.
I'll make that motion.
So we should state that it's for $7,500.
That would be the maximum.
That'd be the
yes.
maximum, right?
Yes.
Thought it was a fair estimate.
Yeah.
I made the motion.
So I'll second it.
I'd like to comment on the motion. Council only budgeted for the years of 2021, $97,500. We started this in September of 2020 because they lost their ambulance service. 2022, we budgeted $130,000. Of course, this year, $135,000. I'd like to amend the scope of the treasurer's audit to only include the years 2021, 2022, and 2023. I'm trying to save tax dollars here if we can decrease that $7,500. The resolution that the majority council passed had stated that the fire company must do annual itemized listings of all expenses, and they have been doing this quarterly. They've also encouraged through the resolution that the majority council passed, asking them to do additional fundraisings, which they have. And I'd like to know if we can decrease the scope of work that the treasurer, who is doing this audit, has projected, again, to save tax dollars.
I would rather go with the audit as she recommended.
Why would we audit 2018 and 2019 when there was only a kind donation given? And the tax dollars started because of their loss of the ambulance in 2021.
There was a conversation I had with Donna that it's as much a carrot as it is a stick. It's forensics in its way to perhaps find some problems, but it's also knowing that the fire company has been in a distressed organization for, I guess, a number of years, going back to as the closing of the ambulance, as some of those things were taking place, there may be lost money found, there may be a possibility to help them get to the next part of their operations.
Again, the ambulance service closed September 13 of 2020.
If I may say,
That's why
if
I'm
I may
trying to
say,
avoid 18 and 19.
I appreciate you saying that because I think there's a misconception that if we find problems with the audit, that's it. We're not giving the fire company any money. That we've never said that. We want an audit so we can see where the money's coming from, where the money's going. If we're giving the majority of their funding, then they're actually subject to Freedom of Information Act requests. So we have a right to know how much of their budget we're providing. And Donna did a very fair audit. We pay around $10,000 per year to audit the borough. Isn't that correct?
I believe that we should audit the taxpayers' dollars. And in this proposal, they're looking at electronic accounting systems, vendor invoices, payments, W-9, details for all revenue received. So that if I give a donation to the fire company, my donation, everybody else's is going to be audited because Donna's proposal is for all revenue received. She's asking for bank statements, including canceled checks and deposit, loan statements, which I'm not quite sure what that has to do with the taxpayers' dollars, annual 1099s, general ledger, financial statements. And what I'm saying is if we curtail the scope of work to 20, 21, 22, and 23, it will save on this proposal. I'm not against, just so I'm repeating myself, I'm not against an audit of the taxpayers' money.
I heard you. I heard you.
Well, I want to
Okay.
make sure that I'm quoted correctly here.
No, I heard you.
But what I want to say is if we decrease the numbers of years audited, we can save the taxpayers some money off of this $7,500.
I think it's money well spent.
I think it's money well spent to get all the information that we can. It's, how much are we gonna save? $2,000, $1,500?
But it's
let's save it.
taxpayers' money, it's unbudgeted money.
I appreciate your concern. I heard you, and I believe we have the motion that's been seconded, and we're ready for a vote, correct?
Mr. Volk,
Yes.
Mr. Sidlow,
Aye.
Mrs. Purcival,
I vote aye on taxpayers' monies for those years.
Mr. Sweigart,
Yes.
Mr. Costigan,
Yes.
Mrs. Guy,
Yes.
6 with one clarification.
Thank you very much. That concludes my portion of the program. We will have a final call to citizens if anybody would like to speak on something that is non-agenda related. Really?
Suzanne Nolan. I've been trying to find out about the woodlot with the lights being out. I thought maybe they might have been fixed by now, and I got caught at night, and the lights did not go on again.
Have we checked to see if that's an electric?
And
They're waiting for
I
approval
called,
from you,
can you
Mrs.
wait till
Guy.
I'm done? I called the electric company, Lenai Electric, and they said that I have to have either the council approval, or the president approval, or the secretary's approval for them to go look into why the lights are not working in the woodlot. I was the first one to ask about the woodlot lights being out, and that was last month, and still nothing has been done, so I'd like to see something done. Can you tell me, is it different than what I was told? Who has to contact them and approve for them to look into it?
Well, I apologize. I thought somebody was looking into if it was an electrical problem, because to have them all go at once seems
like a breaker issue.
Seems like an electrical issue,
I mean,
not an issue with the lamps.
I sent you a text message today.
All right, Bob, if you could call Pico and...
No,
It wasn't Pico,
it's
it's
not
Lenai
electric.
Really? Because Pico's not putting the power to it?
It's unlikely that it's a Pico issue.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
With your approval, I'll send an email to Lenai tomorrow and have them go over.
All right, thank you. If they can figure out if it's like all of the lamps are broken or if there's an electrical issue getting to them. Thank you, sir.
So that's the,
Minnie a minute ago. I just want to make you aware, I am not accepting the proposal that was asked of me. I will take this further.
what was asked of you?
To give in, to let you guys pay for coverage for 1 year, when I can go every day if I want to Eddystone and get my own credit report. So you wouldn't be paying for jack, so we'll take this further.
80 Slow, 142. Nick's job, what will we have to pay somebody for it? How much would it cost the borough?
I'm not sure, but I'm willing to
Well, you
bet.
made the proposal, wouldn't you have that figure in front of you, the number?
I'm willing to bet I will save money.
We have this budgeted amount.
What's the budget amount, sir?
There's a budgeted amount for a code enforcement officer. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. But there's a budgeted amount for a code enforcement officer for a wage for salary, and then he gets compensation from inspection. So a new person may cost the same, may cost less.
Well, who makes that decision about costing more or less?
That'll be made by council when the time comes.
So we're looking for a person that's going to make less? That's the way I read this.
Yes, I actually think that we were overpaying Mr. Capobianco based on what I saw compared to other boroughs of much larger size, that they don't pay as much for their code enforcement as we do.
The only other, one other question, and this goes back to the fire company. How much money are we talking about that may be misconstrued or taken out? Somebody has an idea. Don't just shake your head. How much? We talking 10, 20, 30, 40?
I mean,
Are we talking, how much?
there's like
money are we talking?
90,000 that hasn't been reported.
So that's a ballpark number that you have heard? Or
That's
have-
that's the amount that they have not provided any report for.
Okay, so that's $90,000.
But their reports are also incredibly vague, and if I worked at a business and I turned in a report like that
Oh.
with no backup, I would be laughed at. So, giving a report that just has some numbers on it with no backup whatsoever, you might as well just write anything. So,
Okay, and my other question, are you, this is to the lawyer. Is it right that you can just can a guy and don't have to have a reason?
Under the
Fire him, what else you want to call it?
under the employee at will doctrine, right? And
Okay.
unless there's a contract for employment, a collective bargaining agreement, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, it is assumed, right, that you are an at-will employee. And an at-will employee can be discharged at any time for any reason, so long as it's not an illegal reason. And by that, I mean,
Okay.
we can't discharge somebody
Because you don't like
because of the color of their skin,
Yes, sir.
or because of their ethnic background, or because of their religion, or because of their gender. They are what we call all protected classes. But again, you can be discharged for no reason at all under the employee at will doctrine.
Okay, my final question is, are we looking at a lawsuit now from this guy?
Yep.
Are we looking at a lawsuit from this guy?
That's his choice, that's what he does.
And none of you's having it, okay,
It's an
okay. And I guess we have to pay for that too, right?
Yep. Yep.
We'll have to defend, the council will have to defend himself, right?
if Mr. Wills thought that we were doing something that would result in a
I didn't say it
lawsuit,
was, I'm just saying that we have to defend, if we have to, the council has to defend itself, that means we have to put money out, that means taxpayers' money.
I'm just saying that Mr. Wills would not advise us to do something that would put us at risk for a lawsuit. I trust.
Okay, thank you.
She's coming up soon.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, please. Ladies before gentlemen. Definitely a gentleman.
Hi, my name is Brendan Brilliant. I just moved to Parkside Terrace, the beginning of June. Anyway, I'm a little confused about not being able to have Mr. Powers removed from council. Maybe someone can explain that to me, because I was looking up the zoning officer position that was posted. And in there, it says that if anybody is accused of malfeasance, which is wrongdoing, especially by a public official, the council can vote and by majority have the person removed from the zoning board. So why doesn't that same aspect apply to the council?
I can explain that. Zoning board is not an elected position. Council is an elected position. So the laws make it very difficult to remove an elected official, because otherwise the majority would just kick out the minority every chance they got. So we can't just vote him out. If he does not resign and we still feel that he should be removed from council, there are procedures we can pursue, like impeachment with the state legislature. But there's a good reason why they make it hard to remove elected officials by a vote.
Okay, thank you. And then also, you said that his positions are going to be suspended. So does that mean his income is suspended as well? And how about the stipend that he gets for being on council?
The council income would not be affected.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ken Goldstein again. All issues aside, just a quick comment. This is really a sad night for the borough. All this is really very saddening. Forgetting the politics of it all, just to hear what I'm hearing and all that's going on. It's really a sad night for everybody, for lots of reasons. I'm not sure of the wisdom of terminating a position of code enforcement without having somebody in that position of code enforcement, simply because your ordinances require code enforcement inspections for the transfer of real property, for transfer of possession of real property in rental situations. And right now you have nobody. So I guess I question how you're going to be able to enforce the laws that you have without putting a burden upon the residents who live here, who own property here, who want to sell a home, rent an apartment. I'm going to let you figure that out in your wisdom with the advice of your solicitor.
I concur with your concerns with regard to that issue, Mr. Goldstein. I'm obviously involved in the real estate field myself, and I will certainly urge that Borough Council expedite that process so that we get a qualified code enforcement officer in place ASAP.
Thank you. The last issue with regard to the letter, Mr. Wilson, I am happy to talk to council. It doesn't have to be in this forum. If you think that's best, I do that to share my concerns. It doesn't have to be.
I think, Mr. Goldstein, yeah, that it would be much more productive.
All right, so why
have
don't we
those discussions.
Why don't we agree to do that at some point, and then I can share my concerns. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
What's that? Sure. All right, we'll meet with you after the meeting, Mr. Ken. Mr. Goldstein, we'll meet with you after the meeting, all right?
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.